Unit 8, Part 7. Let's do proof bit 11. I discussed it in Part 5 when I had the text screenshotted and we went through the proof bits for the first time. We glanced at the text on the proof bits. And remember what I said there? I said you should think all these proof bits truth functionally, right? Because that'll help you to hammer home into your brain that a path from premises of this form to a conclusion of this form is possible, right? Which will alert you to think, there should be then a proof bit that allows me to get from premises of this form to a conclusion of this form. Because again, when will you be wanting to apply this proof bit, right? What kind of use or test of your knowledge will knowledge of these proof bits come into play, right? It'll be when you need a conclusion of this form, that is, you need to derive a negated conditional, either as your overall conclusion, right, where you have some negated conditional, probably with a complex P and a complex Q, or it may vary. Remember, these are subroutines. Klenk introduces them, the proof bits, section 3 of Unit 8, introduces them as subroutines. It might be the case that you've determined, working backwards, that you need to derive a negated conditional in order to go on to get your actual conclusion. Perhaps a negated conditional is the antecedent of a bigger conditional, is the antecedent of a conditional, and your actual conclusion is the consequent of that conditional. So you need to derive this in order to do modus ponens to get home, okay? But if you think it truth functionally, right, so this is the negation of a conditional, right? This says P is true and Q is false, right? You could read not Q as Q is false, right? Well, if P is true and Q is false, right, that's the one case when P hook Q is false, right? And that's what this says. This says P and Q, P hook Q is false. It says not if P then Q, right? So that alert, thinking it truth functionally like that should alert you to the idea that there should be a path to this, to something like this, from this. I say it like that, a path to this, because it's when you recognize this as what you need, when you recognize something of this form, a negated conditional, as what you need, that you'll look and see, oh, I have both the antecedent and the negation of the consequent. Oh, I should be able to get from that to that. These suffice. The truth of these, that I'm given the truth of these, remember these are amongst your premises or formulas you've already derived, things that you're now given. You should think, the truth of these suffices for the truth of this, so I should be able to get from there to there. Okay. As to what you do, and thinking it top down, I don't think it top down. I figure out what I need working backwards. Now, the move that I'm showing you now, let this lesson double for introducing you to a habit which I mentioned in part 5. Imagine this is a premise, right? There's things of this form. If this was a premise, I'm going to write formulas here, and it's as if this was a premise, you would just write these down with the rules that I'm mentioning. This is a negated conditional, right? Whenever you have a negated conditional as a premise, I know this is a conclusion, but whenever you have it as a negated conditional as a premise, immediately you should do this move. Conditional exchange on the subformula that is the P hook Q, right? Is P hook Q a subformula of this formula? Yes, it is, right? This is the negation of P hook Q, right? So that's a subformula. So I'm leaving the overall form of the thing in place. Why? Because I'm only applying the rule on a subformula, right? I'm only applying conditional exchange on the P hook Q. What's P hook Q equivalent to? Not P or Q, okay? Now I'm saying, if this was a premise, you would have derived that. You would write next to this conditional exchange, because you'd be justifying, right? This would be premise, and you'd be justifying that. And this, of course, now you go, happy face. This is your happy face emoticon. So that's why I want this to be a habit. If you've got a negated conditional exchange transforms it into the happy face, transforms it into a negated disjunction. Negated disjunction, you know what to do with them. De Morgan's gives you not P and and not Q, right? Notice the form for De Morgan's is not P or Q. Now your P is not P, as it were. So not P and not Q becomes not P and not Q. That's confusing because these are in terms of centennial variables, but you've got to add a negation to both of these, transforming into a conjunction, right? So that transforms to that. I'm thinking the way I've thought it is conditional exchange, De Morgan's, but of course it's going to be De Morgan's will be the justification this way, here, right? So of course, just to finish the thought, if this was a premise, you transform it to that by conditional exchange, and then to that by De Morgan's, and then simplify, right? So that's what, from this you go 1, 2, 3, 4 moves, which should all be done as a habit, if you see as a premise a negated conditional. Okay, but now we've got De Morgan's, we've got this, and now it's easy to see how you get from here to here. This was P and not Q. All I need to do is double negate the P, right? Just to be explicit, right? What's this formula? What's its form? It is a conjunction. What rule allows you to derive conjunctions as a conclusion? It's the rule of conj. So I'm going to be conjing, doing a conjunction. What are the premises I need to do that rule? I just need the two conjuncts separately. So I need not P, 1 by double negation. I've got Q, premise. So 4 conj, right? 5, 6. De Morgan's on 4. What's this? Conj and 2 and 3 conj. 4 De Morgan's, and then what was this? This was conditional exchange. 5 conditional exchange. From that to that. Okay. Okay, keep going a bit. That's proof bit 11. Make sure you can do that. Okay, let's do, this is section 4 now, page 162H. Okay, I'll start it and continue in the next section. Okay, so I've got 4 premises. These are all prems. And the conclusion I need is F or G. So let's start by asking, first of all, does this formula, plus or minus negation, appear amongst the premises? No, right? When I pause, you can pause and answer and then come back. Right? It doesn't, there's no F or G as a sub-formula, right? That is to say, this doesn't appear as, say, the consequent of a conditional, or we don't have a not brackets, F or G is the antecedent of the conditional, right? There's no, this isn't a disjunctive, a disjunction, none of that. In fact, notice something else, right? So that means the first thought should be something like, I'll have to get the parts separately. But notice, if you think about G, where's G going to come from? Where does G appear? Plus or minus a premise, plus or minus a negation or anything among the premises. There is no G. There is no G at all there. Okay, you should combine that fact, that noticing that there is no G there, so as it were, I'm going to have to pull G out of thin air. Combine that with another answer to a question you should have asked yourself when you're looking at the conclusion and remaining conclusion driven and entering your mantra and saying, what is the form of the conclusion? The form of the conclusion is a disjunction. What rules allow you to infer disjunctions as their conclusion? Oh, addition. Oh, addition. See how the two facts combine now, right? Addition, so how am I going to get this? Well, somehow I'm going to get F, and if I get F, I'm entitled to infer by addition, right? So it looks very likely that I'm going to get this by add. I don't see any other way I'm going to get it by addition. But what I need to get is F. Somehow I need to get F, I don't know how yet, question mark. But if I have F, then I can get F or G. Okay, so now, question, so that's my task, right? I've reduced the task of getting this conclusion to the task of getting this. Once I get this, I'm home free. I don't know how I get that, but once I get it, I just add G to it. Disjunction F or G. Right. Add. See how that lesson Klenk stressed and that I stressed in the Unit 7 lectures is very, very crucial. The lesson of not to confuse addition and conjunction. Right. this is not a conj, right? This is not a conjunction, right? So since it is a disjunction, it is you have to recognize the disjunction. Oh, that is, I can get that by addition. You would be mistaken and wouldn't be able to do this proof if you were to think, I have to get F and G together in conjunction. No, you don't. The conclusion of conj, the conclusion of the rule of conjunction is of the form of a conjunction, right? This is not that. Similarly, the confusion the other way would be if you thought, if you had a conjunction, F and G, if that was the conclusion, you'd have to have different premises for the proof to work. If that was the conclusion, you'd be mistaken to think you can add, that you could just get F, say, that you could just get F and then go from F, add to F and G. No. F and G does not follow from F, right? So there's no rule that allows you to do that. You can't do simplification in reverse. Okay, so I need F. So now it's just, where does F appear? Right, my problem reduces to finding F. Where does F appear, plus or minus a negation amongst the premises? It appears only in premise 1 as what? As one side of a biconditional, right? So definitely I'm going to want to break that biconditional apart. Like I said, in discussing the rule of biconditional, BE, the rule biconditional exchange, BE, the rule of biconditional exchange, is the only rule governing the use of biconditionals. So if it's not the case that you want to keep the unit as a whole, the biconditional unit as a whole, which it's not, you want F by itself, you want to get F by itself, you want to break that up. That'll give us conditionals with F on either side. F as the antecedent and F as a consequent. Now, since I actually want F, right, if it was, notice this, if it was not F that I wanted, and it was F there, okay, so let me do it, right? F hook, not D, right? Biconditional exchange, the conclusion of it is a conjunction, which means you simplify straight away. Six, seven, BE on 1, right? And then 5, simplification, right? So just quickly, if it was not F that I wanted, I would be looking at 6, right? I would be looking at F as the antecedent because I'd be looking out for a modus tollens to get the conclusion, not F. Because the conclusion is the negation of the antecedent, right? And I would want the negation of the antecedent. But it's F itself that I want. It is not F that I want. I want F, so I'm looking rather at 7 and suspecting that 7 will be the one that gets me home, right? So I rather want the antecedent of this, right? If it was not F that I was after, I'd want not D, so I could do modus tollens to get not F. But I want F, so I actually want not D, simply not D, to get home. All right, continue in the next part.